Snell, the current president, live streaming from the Washington, D.C. area. Today is November 5th. On November 15th, we'll be hosting an exciting event at the Capitol Hilton in the heart of Washington, D.C. entitled Mesmerized, an Immersive Experiment in Science and Magic. This will be an interactive program. Ordinary people in the audience will unlock extraordinary abilities, becoming stronger, picking up hidden thoughts, and even sensing the feelings of others. What begins as entertainment will quickly transform into an exploration of human potential. You'll leave with stories, experiences, and a deeper curiosity about how your mind really works. So let's meet the two performers. They're joining us from, in one case, the campus of Carthage College in Wisconsin, and Kenosha in Wisconsin, the birthplace of Orson Welles, I've just learned today. Cognitive scientist Anthony Barnhart is an associate professor and interim chair of psychological science at Carthage College and a part-time professional magician. He was founding member of the Science of Magic Association and frequently appears in national and international media. And mentalist Joe Diamond in Kenosha is someone you may recognize from the TV series Penn and Teller Fool Us. He appeared on their program in early 2024. He's the Midwest mystic who solved the world's largest corn maze blindfolded. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Of course, I want to talk about November 15th with you, but first let's talk about November 5th. Today, your big event tonight at Carthage. My understanding is this is in honor of Martin Gardner. It's the celebration of mind.
Yeah, correct. Thanks for having us, Scott. Yeah, every year around the world in late October, early November, folks host celebration of mind events to honor the legacy of Martin Gardner. And this is something I started doing at Carthage College now 10 years ago. This is, well, okay, 11 years ago. There was 1 year off for the pandemic. But I find it is a really great way to bring students together from a variety of different backgrounds under one umbrella because Martin Gardner had such diverse interests.
Mhm.
And so the programming is different every year, and this year it is all about Mesmerized. And Joe and
Cool.
I will be performing the show, and afterwards we have a series of hands-on demonstrations of illusions and magic and mathematical curiosities and all the things that are in the spirit of Martin Gardner.
Nice. So is it fair to describe this evening as the world premiere of Mesmerized?
I think in its current form, it would be the
Yes.
world premiere, but
Uh,
bits
I
and pieces of Mesmerized have been around for quite a while now.
I see.
yeah, yeah. I did a show which had the early version of the mesmerized, for lack of a better term, show or hunk of material. The
Mhm.
first place, or at least one of the first places, maybe within the first performance or two, was at Dr. Barnhart's cognitive science of magic class, and that was really fun. And when he's been like gung-ho with like every time, like he's like, are you doing any mesmerism in this upcoming show? I'm like, no, it doesn't really fit. It's like, so it's very it's fun to finally put it all back together into one show, because it has become, because it is based on mental suggestion and hypnotic like phenomena or effects or demonstrations. I hate to say that it's become filler for me, but it is one of those things that, because I can do all of it or I can do small little bits and pieces of it. I can do a quick introduction about what mesmerism is and do two effects, or I can do a whole, like, 30 to 40 minutes.
Mhm.
So it's been fun to come back to it in a more structured sense. And that was also the reason why I wanted to put it together, because when you do any kind of entertainment, whether it be, stand-up comedy, magic, juggling, you're going to get those moments where someone goes, hey, can you do 50 minutes instead of 40? We're running behind, or so and so after you needs more time or something.
Mhm.
And the upside with this type of work is you don't need props, you just need people. And I
Mhm.
always envied like hypnotists in that way, but I also had some, we'll just say, ethical hesitations with it, for me personally.
Mhm.
and artistic ones as well. So I it was fun to work on. It's been fun to constantly come back to it and change it. And when we were talking about doing something like this together, and we really saw how much of the principles of mesmerism inter interconnected with the history of magic and science intermingling. It was really eye-opening, and that's the other thing I love about it. Every like year or so I'll read a new book or read a new resource and realize, oh my gosh, there's this whole other aspect of it that I
Mhm.
never. And Martin Gardner is very much the same way, to bring it back around to
Yeah.
tonight. There's like, you could just read his magic work, his magic effects, and be fooled more times than Tony fooled me with a Martin Gardner effect recently, like maybe 3, 4 weeks ago. Was that Tony?
Yep, yep.
He made a coin vanish in a handkerchief, and I was like,
It's an obscure
wait,
one.
wait, that's what? Because it's none of the usual ways a
Yeah.
coin vanishes.
Uh-huh.
And then you learn it and you're like, this is even cooler. And you're like, how did he come up with this? What?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
So it was sort of a Tony Barnhart Fool Us program in your
Oh, he could fool
own.
me. I mean, if there's any question as to who the bigger fool between the two of us is, it's me.
Oh,
We can get into that maybe later,
yes.
but yeah, but there's so much with Martin Gardner specifically, that because we did this, or I was a guest speaker a few years ago, and we talked about something completely different than what we're going to be talking about
Hmm.
tonight. The theme that year was wisdom of crowds,
Uh-huh.
and that was really fun and really cool. And was it last year? Your friend was talking about knitting.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was like 2 years ago, I
few
think.
years
Yep.
ago now. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. That still blows my mind that she had figured out, because she has a background in math, or her job is mathematics. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's
Yep.
see how much I've retained.
Yes.
She basically helped find there's like a set number of patterns for, was it crocheting? Was it
No, I think it's knitting.
knitting? Okay, for knitting, there's like a set number of patterns. There was like 14 or something, and she found like a genuinely new 15th one.
Wow.
After it'd been like 100 years plus of just 14.
Which you
And the
can imagine
mathematics,
Martin Gardner would have loved, right? His
yes,
interest in topology, like that would have been right
yeah,
up his
yeah,
alley
Yeah.
for
Now
like
sure.
your
like
mesmerized show does not involve knitting. I do want to emphasize that to
Very
the
little,
audience.
very little knitting.
And after tonight's world premiere, you're going on the road, East
Mhm.
Coast. So
That's
first to
right.
Virginia at University of Richmond, then up here to
Uh,
Maryland at Johns Hopkins, and then finally, 8 p.m. November 15th,
that's right.
Saturday at the Capitol Hilton in Washington, D.C. And so, yeah, if you would, no spoilers, but
no,
if you
Sure.
would let us know about what you can share.
Yeah, so I think this show represents the perfect merger of our two pedigrees, right? Joe's been doing this mesmerism uh, act for quite a while, and all of it really speaks to the origins of psychological science as we know it,
Mhm.
right? And so this show is an exploration of these early interactions between magicians and mystics and mediums and early psychologists. And you will hear some stories that have hardly been told about the origins of experimental psychology and the role that magicians and mystics played in its founding.
Mhm.
Um, unusual stories and an exploration of some of these early ideas, these theories that emerged from this ultimately folk psychology of mesmerism
Mhm.
and spiritualism. But these early theories are echoed in modern cognitive science. Some of the things that I'm discovering in my laboratory have been foreshadowed by a lot of the work that was carried out in the late 1800s in these early interactions.
Mhm.
And so the show's part science and part magic and a lot of mesmerism. And I think
Cool.
people are really going to be enjoyed it, and they're going to be surprised.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, I think we are too, because
yeah,
everywhere we're doing it, it's kind of going to be in a different form. Like when
yeah,
we bring it into classes, some of these class periods are 3 hours long.
hmm
So that'll be good because we'll be able to test and see, like, to keep the show in DC from being, not that we don't want people to have their money's worth, but we don't want to hold them hostage either.
Mhm.
So it'll help us tighten everything up and figure out. And also, like, the other great thing too is, like, Tony, for me, as a, as a performer, as for lack of a better term, a professional performance artist, so much of this is getting outside of my own head. You have to do a lot of actual mind reading to know what you're communicating to the audience and what you're not. And there are my wife and sweetheart Lindsay is very much the same way. She will her and Tony were the ones who will ground me and be like, that part was not conveyed, Joe. You can just cut that part. I'm like, oh, okay. The artsy part of my brain, like, can let that go more easily when I have that outward um, sounding board. And also in the case of both of them, and especially Dr. Barnhart, is the ethics of this, because uh, there is a big ethical divide in magic and mentalism, with magic and science. And even what, without speaking too much out of terms of people who may or may not be in the media or in the entertainment industry or both right now, but there's a lot of even debate of what a mentalist or a magician is, like how much of it is a trick, how much of it is real. And part of me, I kind of feel like, first of all, there's just so many more interesting questions that we can get to if we kind of, set that aside. And also, most of it has to do with, in my experience, both for me and watching other performers, a lot of that kind of thinking has to come from the performer's ego. So being able to kind of set that aside and focus purely on the audience, focus purely on what, you know, because a big thing a lot of these entertainers will say is like, oh, well, I'm just doing a show. I'm not trying to educate people. Well, I got to tell you, as someone who debatably barely has a high school education, a passable high school education, whether or not that school doesn't exist anymore, Tony. I went to 12 years of a very religious school that does not exist anymore. So I don't have the best formalized education, but I've always been a big reader. I've always been a huge lifelong student of many things. I try to be anyway,
Mhm.
and I am very aware of my limits. Despite that, I'm still, as a borderline carnival nightmare alley mentalist, coming to coming to places like Johns Hopkins and speaking, because I want to be better, and I want better for my art form, and also, how people see the art form as well.
I want to interject that Joe is undervaluing himself here, right? Like, Joe is a true scholar of magic and mentalism, and this dude is more well read than
Oh, thank you.
almost any magician that I know, and so he is made up for his piss poor formal education with a really solid informal self-guided
Uh, well,
education. So
Thank you,
kudos
thank
to
you.
you for
That
that.
that makes that
But
makes me feel a little better, but
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 I will
still,
say, like,
okay,
one of
go
the
ahead.
other, like, great side effects of putting together this show is we're performing this at universities, primarily for undergraduate students. There'll be graduate students and faculty in the rooms, but this is such an exciting vehicle for getting undergraduates to see the relationships between abstract principles they're learning in their psychology classes
Mhm.
and phenomena out in the real world.
Right.
It is my hope that students who are attending our performances are going to be, like, bit by the science bug in a unique way,
Yes.
and see they'll have a newfound curiosity for the science of the mind. is my
Yes.
hope. And then bringing it to the National Capital Area skeptics. I mean, I suspect that's an audience that already has been bit by the science bug, but we're going to show them this new pathway through science that they have probably never seen before.
Yes, we've made outreach to local students, especially psychology students.
Oh,
And,
great.
I'm aware to some extent of your research, Tony, on, attention and how magic can be analyzed scientifically, helping the art of magic, but also the science of psychology. Those two fields, you
Yeah.
join them in your work. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so really, I'm continuing something that was started in the last decade of the 1800s. In that one decade, and I'll talk about this a little bit in the show, a bunch of psychologists of the era took an interest in the methods of magicians. They saw that the techniques that magicians are using to deceive the senses can give us insights into the mechanisms of psychology. But then around the turn of the 20th century, there was a revolution in psychology, the so-called behaviorist revolution, that said if we're going to be a science, we need to limit our study to those things that are directly observable and measurable. Well, the
Mhm.
things magicians are doing are manipulating thoughts inside your head. Can't be seen, can't be measured directly. And so all this stuff fell off the table of things that are deemed reasonable science. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't until the late 1990s that psychologists once again turned their attention to the methods of magicians and revisited some of these ideas from that last decade of the 1800s.
Mhm.
And now it is a legitimate movement in psychology. We have the Science of Magic Association that meets, has international conferences every 2 years that brings together all manner of scholars who have taken an interest in magic. And many of us who are psychologists have a goal of uh, testing some of these claims from folk psychology, the folk psychology of magic, to figure
Yes.
out if they can be integrated into formal psychological science. And we're having great success in that front.
That's
And
really
in relation to that too, there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, folk psychology in magic. I would argue
Yeah.
99% of magic theory is folk psychology,
Yeah.
like the idea of, oh, if you look, the audience will look, or if you carry out this action normally first, is it more deceptive when you do the different action later?
Mhm.
And sometimes yes, and sometimes not, and sometimes and it's really fascinating to see a lot of these things that have just kind of been taken for granted. Magicians often have been heralded as, like, you know skeptics, and you think of Houdini and of course Randy,
Mhm.
um, and countless people over the years who have tried to use the performance magic to kind of, in lack of a better term, combat, for lack of a better term, ritualistic magic, or better term, pseudoscience.
Right.
And I am all for calling out bullshit. Like, absolutely. I don't know if we can swear on this or not. It's going to
That's quite all
YouTube.
right. I'll
Okay,
keep it.
whoopsie. Your stream is now
That's a
PG-13.
that's
Sorry.
a scientific term. That one's
It
usable.
is. It
That
is.
shows up in the scientific literature.
Yes, it does. It does.
Joe,
But also, just going back to what Tony said, there around that time when psychology dropped off, magic also kind of split off. It went into, like, seances and, for lack of a better term, more of this mesmerism type stuff, and it kind of split between performance magic and, for lack of a better term, ritualistic or pseudoscience, which is where
uh-huh.
we get the seances, Uri Geller, um, insert current political topic here. So, and as a result, there's been, in many ways, there's been positives with that. But I think one of the things that we're now starting to see is people aren't as, I don't even want to say skeptical, but they don't have clear definitions of a lot of these types of things. They're, people who claim their BS detectors are very high. It's like, it's not plugged in. You are not plugged into what these things actually are and do.
Uh-huh.
And so, and even to a certain degree, even with, again, show business, how much of that has, you know, chiseled away of what's real and what's not. So a big thing with this, and artistically, I do want to create for myself. I want to create questions. I want to create mystery and wonder, and I don't want to tell people what to think or that they should think about what. To me, that's not the job of the artist. The artist is to just do the thing. Their job isn't to sit next to the painting and make sure no one thinks it's a photograph.
Right.
Like
I
that's
want to
one thing.
follow up on your comment about magicians and skeptics. We skeptics are so grateful to honest magicians that
Yes.
one of our co-founders of the National Capital Area Skeptics, Jamie Ian Swiss.
Mm.
And of course Randy with the international skeptics movement. So yeah, invaluable. It takes one to know one, and it's great to
Yes.
have them on your team so the
Mhm.
public can find out, if someone is hoodwinking them. You'd mentioned Uri Geller, by the way, and he claims, and I have to agree based on the video, I don't often agree with Geller, but that you are a better spoon bender than Geller. And I've seen the videos. It looks real. I mean, I don't
Thank
think
you.
they're AI videos.
They are not. These have been around longer than AI, and I do it live. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm the only, probably not the only, but definitely less than a. There are fewer people. This is why I'm not upset that I didn't get the Foolish Trophy, because there are fewer people who have positive things said about them by both Penn and Teller and Uri Geller. So that's much rarer.
That's
There's
a
maybe
delicate
five of us.
dance.
Yeah, it is a delicate dance. Well, and here's the other thing too, because I wanna make this very clear as well. Like I also like in front of Penn and Teller in their house, on their stage, on their TV show, gave their host a palm reading. Like I'm also very like conscious of that. And I think part of that is part of the reason I think I've been able to explore that stuff and get away with it without getting too in the weeds. That said, I'm positive, and I mean, I'm sure, Tony can say many stories where I've probably crossed the line ethically or artistically. However, I'm trying my best. I'm only human. But the fact that I did it, I didn't get dragged off their stage, and it was stayed in the edit and everything else, I am insanely proud of. So,
Yeah, they
and she
loved you.
hugged me. So there we go there too. So
They loved you, said you're a great performer. You didn't fool them, but of course, the two of them had been working together. Actually, this is their 50th anniversary. It's very difficult, but they said
yeah,
how great you were. And
yeah.
I'm sure
Well,
we're going to see that on
and I did
November
psychically predict
15th.
that I would not fool them. So take that.
Right. Yeah, by the way, I invite, if people go ahead and Google to
Yeah.
watch the
Yeah, if you Google
video.
Joe Diamond, it's literally the first thing that comes up. Speaking of which, and this is kind of funny, and I'm okay with sharing this with people. Literally the second video underneath it, maybe even the video right above it, will be the video of me teaching the card effect I did on Penn and Teller Fools.
All right, cool.
Because I did it, I actually originally taught it on my friend's channel. Now it takes 20 minutes. It's a 20-minute video because it's a very intricate method. But it's also one of those, and it is one of those things, as Penn said, once you know it, it is strangely more impressive once you know it. But this is also why I'm not too worried about hoarding. I feel like a lot of, particularly mentalists, but magicians, feel like the secret to their mysteries is to hoard the information, is to keep the public, for lack of a better term, I don't even want to say gullible, but is uneducated the word I'm looking for, Tony? Or they want to purposely keep the public in the dark to a lot of these techniques, or the idea that this could even be faked. But I think what I'm looking for is they want to keep the public ignorant of
Yeah.
magic methods and the work that goes into this stuff
Uh-huh.
because they actually want people to believe what they're doing is real magic. And I mean, there is a lot of, for lack of a better term, in the mesmerism stuff, there is some real psychology to it. There is some things where if it doesn't work, there's not a trick. There's not an invisible string or a gimmicked card to make them think what happened happened. It either works or it does not.
What
Um,
Joe's saying is if you come on November 15th, you may see us fail.
yes, you
All
definitely.
right, in an entertaining way.
No matter what, I can promise you'll see us failing as husbands because we'll both be away from our wives.
I see.
But
Gentlemen,
no,
we
but
have a few minutes remaining. I did
yeah,
want to pass along a couple of questions. Is there
sure.
any sort of age appropriate, no younger than such and such?
I would say definitely not toddlers. I would say maybe around 10 because there actually is a bit of ironically psychology when it comes to, you know, at least to magic and mentalism. And kids up until a certain age, you tell them their favorite color, they don't realize not everyone knows that's their favorite color. They don't understand there's a perspective other than their own.
Got it.
So for some ages and some kids, I would say at least for my work, if they're into, like, if your kid is a weirdo like me and is already watching Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Twilight Zone by age 10, yeah,
Uh-huh.
they'll dig this.
All right.
But also Tony's doing more traditional magic in his part as well. We have something at
Yeah.
the end that we do together that's a bit more visual. So I would say maybe 10 and up.
Yeah, it's rated G,
Yeah,
but it's full of ideas that might be a little
yeah,
foreign to
yeah,
kids.
yeah.
Good. All
So
right. 10,
no,
and
yeah,
then the next
spoiler alert, your kid
question.
may learn something. That's the biggest downside with our show. Your kid might find it boring because they're learning something,
All right. And
not because there's anything.
will there be any flashing lights or other effects that might pose a hazard for people susceptible to seizures?
No.
No, there's as in all the years. So I do have a little bit of background in stage hypnosis. I don't do any hypnosis, or for lack of a better term, trance work in uh, the mesmerism set. It's all waking state
Yeah.
suggestion and such. So that said, I have had some instances with stage hypnosis where someone like in the audience went under while I was working with, this is all in a classroom setting too. I didn't do very much like actual stage hypnosis. It was all actually for a psychology class.
Uh-huh.
So when stuff like that would happen, I've dealt with that. So you know, if there is something like that that were to happen, I like to think that I'd be able to help in some way before the paramedics show up. But no, we won't be flashing lights.
Yeah.
We won't be making people's hearts stop or balk like chickens or
This
sticking
is
needles through people's arms. No,
it's
nothing
an
like that.
incredibly low tech show. The
Yeah.
most modern piece of technology in the show is 3 analog metronomes. So there you go.
I think they can withstand that then. And in our last minute or two, I do want to thank mentalist Brian Curry, he calls himself the
Mm,
Good Liar,
Yes, Brian.
for
yes.
letting NCAS host this show that you're putting on in the room he uses for his 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Shows on Saturdays. And in fact, please do check out his 5 p.m. show. So
Yeah.
there'll be
We'll be
there'll be
there.
We'll be
there'll
there.
be
Yeah.
mentalism energy pre-loaded for you there,
Yeah.
Joe, when your
Yeah.
8 p.m. Show is getting ready. And in the minute that we have left, I did want to ask you both, when I think of mentalism, my God, 60 Minutes just a week ago had Oz Perlman on. And can you very briefly give an opinion, if you want, about that?
I didn't
And
watch it yet, but
I haven't
I've
watched
known
the
of
60
Otis work
Minutes
for a
piece.
long
Yeah.
time. So, did you watch the full thing, Tony?
I haven't watched the 60 Minutes. I saw him on like Morning Joe. I've seen him in a few other places on his book tour, but I haven't watched the 60 Minutes piece yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been aware of O's. He used to demo magic tricks for Penguin Magic back in the day. Like he was the guy who filmed all the tricks for like their website and everything. So I've been aware of his work for a long time, and the fact that you know, he's grown as a performer, grown as a career, like all of that. He goes a completely different like style and presentation than I do, but I also look at the just the raw drive and energy he has, and it's like that doesn't happen by accident. You don't accidentally become the mentalist on 60 Minutes. I've worked very hard to not be the mentalist on 60 Minutes. So
Oh, and you're succeeding so much.
I'm doing so well.
You're
Keep the expectations low.
Guys, we're coming down to the end, and I do want to warn people if they are Googling for this wonderful event, November 15th, Mesmerized at in Washington, D.C. If you Google Mesmerized D.C., one of the hits you'll get is for a fan, like a ceiling fan called the Mesmerized fan, and it's apparently DC, direct current, I assume. Anyway, that's not us. Look in the description of this video that you're watching right now, and you'll see the link. And also, I'll share my screen to the uh,
There we go.
URL. And hopefully, this is about to appear on everyone's screen.
Yep.
And we're thrilled about it. And you know, this meeting of science and art is right in the wheelhouse of the National Capital Area Skeptics. As I mentioned, Jamie Ian Swiss, and of course we have scientists and engineers amongst us as well. And we're excited that you're coming all the way from Wisconsin and including us on your tour. And good luck on all of it.
Thank you.
We're really looking forward to seeing you. Thanks so much for hosting us.
Gentlemen, thank you again, and good luck tonight with the Gardner event.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And JD, thank you so much, as always,
Yeah.
for
Thank you,
excellent
JD.